Today we're going to be talking about reusable and sustainable period products, and first talking about how bad the current ones, like the disposable ones, are for the environment and what you can do to make sure that you are using more sustainable products. And then we have some intro slides here. My name is Zainab. My major is behavioral neuroscience and minor is Spanish, and I'm a sophomore right now. I'm really passionate about ending international period taboos because I have some experience with it myself. And my favorite thing about the menstrual movement was when we went to University of Michigan's first National Period Day rally in Ann Arbor, and I got to see Abdul El-Sayed speak, who was a politician, so that was really cool. And my favorite movie is Minions. I'm literally obsessed with it. They are so cute. I have a little Build-A-Bear of Bob, the smallest minion. He's so cute. And I'll pass it over to Genevieve.
Hi everyone, I'm Genevieve. I'm a junior right now and I'm double majoring in human resource management and Spanish. And something I'm passionate about is education and awareness for women's health issues, things like periods, I'm very passionate about. And my favorite thing about the menstrual movement is being able to openly discuss my period with others without feeling embarrassed or awkward or anything like that. And my favorite movie are the Princess Diaries movies. I really like those. They're like super cute and fun to watch.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily. I am an experienced architecture and media and information major at MSU right now, and I'm in my third year. A couple of things that I really like doing is giving gifts to my friends, which I really like keeping just a running list of gift ideas. And then when their birthday comes up, kind of giving the gift ideas that I came up with. And also more of like a career-ish passion is creating inclusive, accessible, and usable designs for other people. So my favorite thing about the menstrual movement is just the fact that we're all opening the door to having these really important conversations. And I think that like Kathleen and everyone in this club are doing a really great job of kind of having all of these educational events and conversations and topics for us to talk about. And my favorite movie is Parasite. I think that I like couldn't watch half of it in all honesty. It really stressed me out, but I just really like movies that have the ability to do that to me.
I'll agree with you on that. Parasite was definitely stressful.
Oh yeah, like when they were all under the table.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so first we're going to talk about the history of the tampon and how it was made. This is just a summary of the video on the right. Really quick, in the 15th century BC, ancient Egypt made tampons out of softened papyrus. And in the 5th century, Greeks made tampons with lint wrapped around wood. And in the 20th century, soft white cotton started being used. And in the 1930s, this really popular brand called Tampax started by a woman named Gertrude Tendrick. And in World War II, because all of the women were taking the man's job while they were out for work, tampon sales soared because they were just more comfortable than pads for women who were working in these physically demanding jobs. And today, 70% of American women use tampons, and a lot use pads as well.
Like most important stories, the history of the tampon is an ancient and, bloody one. It goes as far back at least as the ancient Egyptians, who made tampons out of softened papyrus in the 15th century BC. The Greeks in the 5th century BC made tampons with lint wrapped around wood. The Romans used wool, the Japanese used paper, and women in parts of Asia and Africa used rolls of grass and other plants. But the tampon most American women use today, made of soft white cotton inserted with the help of an applicator and removed by the pull of a string, did not come around until the 20th century. The first cotton tampon with an applicator was patented by Dr. Earl Haas of Denver, Colorado in 1933. Although tampons had existed for thousands of years, they have descended into relative obscurity in the United States, and most women use sanitary pads that were held in place by a belt. Huss wanted to create something better than the uncomfortable rags his wife and his patients used. After visiting a friend in California who told him she used a sponge internally to absorb her menstrual flow, he returned to Denver feeling inspired. He went straight to work and developed a highly absorbent compressed cotton tampon with a disposable applicator. As brilliant as Haas's invention was, he failed to create much interest around his new product and ended up selling the patent to a businesswoman named Gertrude Tendrick for $32,000. Tendrick was a German immigrant who went on to start the Tampax company and served as its first president. But she couldn't turn a profit with Tampax and sold the company in 1936. Tampons faced opposition from church groups and even some gynecologists. But great marketing campaigns and studies showing how safe and effective they were helped turn public opinion around. During World War II, sales of tampons soared, presumably because they were more comfortable to use than pads for women, taking over men's jobs in factories. Tampons continued to make their way into American culture, but their watershed moment came in 1972, when the National Association of Broadcasters lifted its ban on advertising tampons on television. Tampon use continued to increase to the point where around 70% of American women use them today. The end. Like most important stories, the history...
Okay, and now we're going to talk about how tampons and other menstrual products became so unsustainable and bad for the earth. A combination of technology and social pressure drove us towards making more sanitary products with more plastic. And our period product manufacturing is, again, heavily dependent on plastic. As you can tell with like any tampon, like if you want to use a tampon, you have to go through the outside plastic part and rip it open, and then also the applicator is plastic as well. And with pads, the wrapper that it comes in actually has a lot of unnecessary plastic. This all began in the mid 1800s, where period blood became perceived as bad, and tools for periods were often bulky and embarrassing, and marketing campaigns leaned into the idea that the new products would make menstruators happy, well-poised, efficient modern women locked into disposable monthly purchases. However, we must end the stigma to bring change, and concerning how period products are made to be more like concealable, because the idea of periods is a big taboo in our culture, although it's getting way better, but we just need to end that stigma as well, and having to package them in a way that makes them less bulky actually also requires the use of more plastic, and we need to end that stigma and bring a change. So now I'll pass it over to Genevieve, who's going to talk about the impact of these products.
Thanks, Zainab. So now I'm going to talk about the effect of cotton specifically, which is in a lot of period products. So the amount of water needed to produce one basic white t-shirt is the same amount of water that one person would drink over 3 years. So you can see that cotton uses a lot of resources and isn't necessarily the best for the environment. And a few things that can happen when growing cotton are pollution, erosion, soil degradation, water contamination, and pesticide-filled dust because they use pesticides to grow cotton. And obviously these impacts are harmful to the environment, to animal ecosystems, to our water sources, and to us as well. So what's inside your pad or tampon? So this is something that I've been looking into more because I think it's really interesting. So a fact that I found is, did you know that companies are not required to disclose the ingredients that are in tampons or pads because they are considered to be medical devices? And I find this to be a little bit strange, and I feel like personally, these companies should be letting you know what's in these products because studies have linked the ingredients in tampons and pads to things like cancer endocrine disruption, allergic reactions, skin irritation, and other negative effects. And so a few ingredients that can be found in your period products are fragrance, which is sort of a cover-up word for other undisclosed ingredients. Things like chlorine, which is popular to bleach your products, and pesticides from non-organic cotton, which I just talked about in the previous slide. And then this specific study found that at a single gynecological practice, they found that one particular brand of pads, the brand Always, which is a really popular brand, led to the symptom of itching or burning vulva in 28 women patients, which is very shocking and just shows that we should, be aware of what's in these products that we're putting on the most sensitive part of our body. And then vaginal products are arguably even worse because they contain lots of dyes and fragrances. And so these should be used with extreme caution. And the American Public Health Association specifically recommends against douching and encourages healthcare providers to educate their patients on the hazards of the practice. So it's really recommended that you just avoid these products in general because they can have damaging effects to your vagina. So the question we want to ask ourselves is, what can we do to avoid these chemicals? So the main thing is just being more aware, trying to educate yourself on what's in these products since they are not disclosed. So telling the FDA via a consumer reporting form if you have concerns or reactions to a product. Looking for brands that do disclose their ingredients. I think this is becoming more popular for brands to start disclosing ingredients, which is good. Trying reusable, washable products like pads that have less of a harmful chemical makeup. Reading the labels of all your products just to, try to be aware of what's in it. And then choosing unscented or chlorine-free products like pads. I recently found an organic pad brand that I'm trying out just because I want to be a little more conscious of what I'm using. So these are just a few ways that you can try your best to be more informed on the products that you're using. So now I'm going to hand it off to Emily.
Okay, so as a quick recap of kind of what we've talked about so far, we learned about the history of the tampon, or at least the rise of its popularity, how it started off as kind of organic natural products and pads, and through like a long effort, I suppose, now tampons, 70% of people who menstruate use tampons. Unfortunately, due to like the dependency on the manufacturing of tampons with plastic, there are also serious side effects and consequences of that on the ecosystem. So we're here to give a little bit of actionable intelligence on what we can do about that. So the first part, the average tampon, when it comes to their disposal, will sit in a landfill for hundreds of years. But the plastic applicators of these tampons are even worse. A study found that one of the biggest environmental impacts of periods is the use of plastic applicators because they're made with low-density polyethylene that'll take centuries to biodegrade. So an example of what people are doing to help with this is Grace and Green is making tampons with cardboard applicators instead of plastic. And even though that might seem like a small step to switch to tampons with plastic applicators, it does help the earth in a really immense way. So a couple of suggestions, since Genevieve talked specifically about the negative impacts of cotton, a couple of things that you can do to help with cotton's negative impact. First, you can opt for organic cotton whenever possible. You actually have the ability to calculate your cotton consumption as well, which we have a link for in the slides. But having just the mindfulness of how much you're consuming or how much cotton that you're using really helps with, the impact, or like having like the awareness of kind of what you're doing and what you're putting into the earth really helps you kind of keep track of how you're taking care of the earth as well. And also, there are companies out there that are part of something called the Better Cotton Initiative. Being mindful about where you're purchasing your menstrual products can help impact or positively impact the companies that are making an effort to help support the ecosystem and reusability, and take like profit away from those companies that may not have as much of a value or any value at all for protecting the earth. And also reusing. So reusable makeup remover cloths, pads, underwears, and menstrual cups. It looks like Kathleen put a link into the chat if anyone's interested as well for what's in the slide for calculating cotton consumption. So how menstrual products can be more eco-friendly. So basically, let's search for some alternatives. Some menstruators now are actually going against the stigma as well and choosing to breed freely, which is eschewing the personal stigma that comes from visible evidence of our most basic biological realities. So if we kind of go back to the history of how tampons and menstrual products became so unsustainable, we kind of learned that there's a social stigma against just periods. Like period blood became considered bad blood, and tampons partially were popularized because they were really effective and more comfortable, but also because there is still a really large cultural stigma about having to hide your period or hide when you're on your period. And you can hear those negative things, like if, I don't know, someone gets really emotional, it's like, oh, I bet she's on her period, or I bet they're on their period. So that's part of it, is kind of challenging that stigma and starting a conversation about it. But other alternatives that you can have if you don't want to go all the way and do that, there are menstrual cups, reusable pads, period underwear, and cardboard applicators. And these are all eco-friendly alternatives that you can start doing. And about the future of sustainable menstrual products. So, oh yeah, I feel like free bleeding would be really messy. Yeah, I agree. I probably wouldn't be able to do that, but respect to the people who are. The future of sustainable menstrual products. As people start to use reusable products like period underwear and menstrual cups, we hope to see a change in the system in bathrooms that also allow for washing and sterilization of reusables. So this also kind of goes back to the conversation that we said before about social stigma when it comes to menstrual products and periods. Those who use reusable products have doubts about the practicality, and that's partially because we don't really have currently a very convenient or sustainable way to, like, I suppose reusable products, when we consider them, just currently aren't as convenient as tampons or disposable ones. And if we can kind of fight the taboo of periods in society about like washing period underwear and reusable pads, and maybe creating these systems or designing these ways to make it, less messy, kind of like Emily mentioned, and like more sustainable and more practical for people, then we can kind of see like these products that are better for the environment, better for our ecosystem, become more normalized moving forwards. And we also have a video on how to make your own reusable menstrual pad as well. Okay, awesome. And that brings us to the end of our slideshow presentation, I think.
Yeah, we just wanted to, end off with a discussion, and I'll just stop the screen share so we can